The 40-day body image workbook is gold, even all by itself. But to have the privilege of going through it with Heather in person, so to speak, it's impossible to capture the benefit of doing that. But of course, I want to try. Heather's compassion, understanding, her expertise, and of course, her humor comes through the book just fine, but all the more when you get to be with her and a group of dozens of others in a Zoom setting. The on the fly extra stories she shares that didn't make it into the book really bring home the truth that much more. It is just wonderful to participate and feel like you're in on the inside scoop. Heather is so totally relatable and real. She instills hope and confidence for anyone on this journey to have a more peaceful body image. I would love to be in this group again. It was a wonderful experience.
Oh, thanks for that, Heidi. I'm so glad you're a part of the group, and I do hope you'll join us again, and I hope you will join us again. We start May 21st. We're going to go every Tuesday just through June, so you will get 40 days of immersion in body image, help, hope, and healing before we hit the hot spot of summer in July. I hope you'll consider joining us. It's affordable, 6 sessions on Tuesdays. I'm going to have a Tuesday afternoon and a Tuesday evening offering. Please consider signing up for the 40-day body image reading journey. You will not regret it. The community you'll find and just the encouragement you'll find as we enter into summer when body image issues flare. Friend, you need this. You can find everything you need to sign up on improvedbodyimage.com. Look for the link in the show notes. Hey, today I'm talking to my friend, Amy Connell. And she's an author. She is a podcast host. She has a brand new book out for teen girls that I really, really like. And today we're talking about how we kind of break the generational cycles of our body image issues. Like, how do we interrupt business as usual if we are dealing with body image issues maybe the same way mom or grandma dealt with it? Oh, we get into lots of good things around this topic today. You're going to really enjoy this interview. Let's get to it. Welcome to Compared to Who, the podcast to help you make peace with your body so you can savor God's rest and feel His love. If you're tired of fighting body image the world's way, Compared to Who is the show for you. You've likely heard lots of talk about loving your body, but my goal is different. Striving to fall in love with stretch marks and cellulite is a little silly to me. Instead, I want to encourage you and remind you with the truth of Scripture that you are seen, you are known, and you are loved no matter what your size or shape. Here, the pressure is off. If you're looking for real talk, biblical encouragement, and regular reminders that God loves you and you're not alone, you've come to the right place. I hope you enjoy today's show, and hey, tell a friend about it. Amy, thanks for being on the Compared to Who show today.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here, Heather. Thanks for having me.
So today is going to be kind of an interesting conversation because you and I are the same age.
Yes, we are.
And what, did we decide I'm older or you're older?
You are 5 months older than I am.
5 months older. Okay. So
yes.
I'm going to turn the big 50, 5 whole months before you turn the big 50.
Yes.
But we are moms of teens. And well, is your son 20? Did your son make 20 yet?
Actually, you're right. Yes. I have a 20 and an 18-year-old.
Okay.
Both of them are boys.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's just barely over the teen mark. But we're also moms who were fitness instructors for decades. Well, you're still got all your certifications and such. I think mine are all lapsed now. But we are women who were entrenched in diet culture.
We were.
Didn't even know we were entrenched in diet culture. Probably would have said, I don't want to speak for you, so correct me if I'm wrong. But for me, I was entrenched in a healthy lifestyle. What would you say?
Oh, boy. I think that is probably a fair way to classify where I thought I was at the time. Yeah. And using all of that fitness as a way to try and, lose weight with the air quotes and all of that around it. But manage my body size for sure.
Yeah. Well, you've been on the show before and I've been on your podcast and we've talked about this a little bit before, but we're both on this journey where we're coming from a place where like life was kind of all about that. to a place where it's like, wow, maybe I didn't have that all right. Or maybe there was some information I was missing. Or maybe as I look back, this would be my story. And I wrote about this a little bit in the 40-day body image workbook. But as I look back, it's like, wow, that was totally the definition of insanity. I kept doing the same thing over and again, expecting different results. If they said eat bread, I ate bread. If they said don't eat bread, I didn't eat bread. Eggs are good, eggs are bad, eggs are good. Fat is good, fat is bad, fat is good. I mean, but round and round it spins. But then we think about the reality that we're moms. And a mom's job is to train her child in all the things, right?
Right.
And so to a certain degree, we taught our kids all this stuff. So that's what we're going today.
Yes.
I mean, Amy, what do you think a good jumping off point is here? Where would you start with this conversation?
Sure. Well, your community probably knows you a little bit better than they know me. And I would say, as it pertains to this conversation, really where I was in my own world trying to manage my own body. And then as a mom, what I was really trying to do was provide health education, which now we know can really almost do more harm than good. Because when you talk about diet culture and talk about creating this dichotomy of food and demonizing some and elevating others, and don't eat sugar, that's bad for you, and eat your Brussels sprouts, that's good for you. And the thing is, Heather, I think so many moms who are kind of in this space with us, who are maybe shifting some of the ways that we have grown up and that we have even raised our children. Everything we did was because we thought it was best for our kids.
Sure.
It was out of love, because we wanted our kids to have, foods with a lot of nutrients, because it can help their brain function, and focus and all of that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, and I'll speak for me, I think the backlash of some of that is it can create negative consequences with food, just like we've seen in the research. Yeah. And so what I am thinking now is, oh man, I really wish I could have done some things differently. I wish I could have loosened up about a lot of things, both on the food that is often considered bad for you, and on the food that is good, that is nutritious, that is nutrient dense, and not held on to both of those so tightly.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here as a mom, really, of legal adults, thinking, man, I kind of messed that up. And what, and trying to mom through that.
How old were you when you started to change your perspective on food stuff? I mean, how many years has it been? I guess is a better way to ask that question.
Well, this has been a very slow change for me. I like to use the example that I am like a rudder. This has been like a rudder on a cruise ship. Like, it has taken a lot for me to turn. And in fact, my first book, Your Worthy Body, came out in November of 2021. I am proud of that book. That book is part of my journey. And there's so much in there that I'm so grateful that God kind of walked with me and, walked me through that. At the same time, I have learned more and realized that there's some diet culture in there that I didn't intend, but it was just what I knew.
Right.
So, this is 2024 when we are recording this. And I would say I'm new, like in this little group that we're in of other, Christian, ditching the diet, health professionals. I feel like I'm one of the oldest and I'm one of the newest in learning all of this. So probably the last 2 years, Aaron Todd with the Intuitive Eating for Christian Women came on my show in November of 2021, right after my book came out.
Okay.
And God just planted some seeds with her and then with some others. So that's kind of a long way of saying it, but I'm still new. I'm still learning.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the same for me, so compared to who came out in June of 2017, but I wrote it in 2015. And yeah, people read compared to who, and they're like, why does Heather tell you to weigh yourself regularly? Yeah. So there's a couple things in there for sure. But it is a journey, and our kids, like it or not, are on the journey with us. And I feel like one of the things that I see happen, or that maybe happened for me, and it's a little panic inducing, is the pendulum swing, right? Because I think to some degree, you go from, I'm going to control everything super tightly because this is what everything depends on. I can't, eat a morsel of this or not have a morsel of this because this is the most important thing. And then as you start to lighten, ease up your grip, I think a lot of us swing way to the other side of like, it's free for all. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think as parents, right, that can be confusing messages for our kids, right? But then I think also for us, I think that's hard to sort out, especially if, we're not the first generation to diet. I don't know your family history, but I'll disclose mine. Like my mom was on a diet always, as was my grandmother and my aunts. And like, this was just what our family did. It was like, we had our hobbies and we had our diets.
Yeah.
and so, like I said earlier on the show, like there's a certain ability I have to recognize the insanity of going from like, this food is good to this food is good. But then, you mentioned like sugar being demonized. Well, like as a mom, I know there's moms listening that are like, yeah, but if my kid has too much sugar, like that doesn't go well.
Right.
And I want my kid to learn that broccoli is better than, I can't even than Oreos, right? Like for your, I want my kid to know which foods will fuel their body better. So where does the pendulum land? Like how do you help the mom navigating that swing in her own life, but then helping her kids with that? Amy, I'll let you answer this right after this quick break.
I want to honor that question so much because it is so hard to sort out for yourself and even harder for your children. One of the things I have realized that I do, Heather, is I will often use my 49-year-old perimenopausal body lens and put that over and assume that the way that food makes me, I use the word feel and function a lot because that's helpful to recognize that. I will use that lens for how that's going to make my 18 and 20-year-old boys feel and function. And the reality is, it's just not as bad.
Yeah.
I can have cheesecake and enjoy it. And then I'm probably awake at 3 o'clock in the morning because my stomach hurts. They're fine. And so it is really challenging to figure out how do we, at the same time, help our children understand how food in particular, but also movement, makes us feel and function with just giving the facts. Because the fact is, not all food is nutritionally the same. The fact also is, if we tell our children or ourselves that you can't have that and restrict, the fact is we are all more likely to binge on that.
Yeah.
And so, I think a lot of it is maybe, it kind of depends too on your kids. I feel like and maybe I'm just glorifying this, but if there's a mom listening and she's got like a 3 and a 5-year-old, like, sister, you're in in a better place because you can implement this. And I know it is hard, but at least the language in your home is safe. I'm sitting here thinking I created a lot of I don't know if harm is the right word, but I used a lot of harmful language and a lot of harmful messaging
Mm.
with that. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of on a tangent here, but I'm just, it is hard to know. It is hard to do. And I think, trying to ask the questions for your child to start to tune in.
Mm-hmm.
And they might get it and they might not. But just like you and I are on a journey and we're figuring it out, we can't expect our kids to get it all right at the right. I'm like, we've got to let them, we've got to let them learn. We've got to let them have 2 sleeves of Oreos and then they feel junky, and then it's like, okay, well, why do you think that was? Well,
Mm.
and or maybe they feel fine, I don't know. I mean, but I think that there's a learning process for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like the thing that you were kind of dancing all around is just like, what's our heart behind it?
Yeah.
Right. Because I do feel like it's different for me to say, so let's use the syrup example, which is a big thing in our house, or at least it used to be. My kids are a little older now. But you get and I use maple syrup.
Mhm.
So that stuff's not super cheap, right? We're
Right.
talking it's like a
No, like
12.
$17
Yeah,
for,
like yeah, it's
I
it's
get
an
it too.
expensive bottle of maple syrup, okay? And so they have whatever it is they're going to be putting syrup on, and they pour so much syrup on, the plate is covered in syrup. My concern in that moment, my heart posture is not really, don't eat all that syrup, it's bad for you. It's, you just wasted a ton of syrup. That's $17 worth of syrup that's on your plate. Um, and so, it's like, okay, well, there's like that kind of angle of like, hey, let's learn to deal with syrup differently. Why don't you put just a little bit on your plate? And then when you run out, you can get some more. And we've
Mhm.
done that with other condiments as well, right? So we don't load. And I feel like, Amy, that's not diet culture. That's common sense or, something more along the lines of I need to teach my children how to be responsible, how to not, overuse things, if you will, right? Like we don't waste.
Right. And I think, I mean, in my opinion, I think that is also helpful for financial education.
Right.
Hey, guys, did you know that this 17, I mean, I get the ones from Costco. I hope you
Yeah.
do too,
Yeah.
because
That's,
they're a
I do
lot
too.
cheaper.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like
But
13.48.
it is a little
Yeah.
cheaper, yeah,
Yep.
than than at HEB, which I don't know if that's where
Mhm.
you shop, but here in
Yeah.
Texas, that's a
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it's like, hey, just for grins, and you homeschool too, right? So
Hmm.
you can even pull this into a math. Like one serving of maple syrup is equal to this amount of money.
Hmm.
Let's not even talk about the sugar. Let's not talk about the, whatever. It's just this is it. And so I would really like to be able to not waste money on our plate and then go back and get it. Uh, and oftentimes, we do things out of habit. I mean, Heather, I don't know about you, but like I can't tell you how many things I will put something on my plate out of habit because this is what I have previously measured out. And
Hmm.
this is the right serving for myself. And so this is what I am allotted for my meal. So this is what
Hmm.
I'm going to put on my meal. And I will eat it all on my meal. And that's a
Hmm.
kind of a tangent, but that's been one of my learning curves in this new process as well. And so sometimes I just do things out of habit or because it's
Hmm.
fun and like, oh. So yeah, I think maybe it's just like, hey, this stuff is not cheap. Can we
Yeah.
let's let's try it, and then if you need some more, you can have some more.
Yeah. So that's one angle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, okay, we don't waste food. But then, oh, we get into the like, well, we don't be the clean plate club and, we
Mhm.
want to give our children the freedom to not clean their plate. And so then the wasteful messages get all convoluted there, right? It's like, well, you're free to stop eating when you're full, like all those things. Oh, it's just so messy when you're a parent. But then I think there's another heart posture of I don't want you to eat that much because I don't want you to get fat.
Mhm.
And I think that's really the one that, at least for me, like that was an intergenerational thing,
Mhm.
right? That would have been the attitude that came down from my grandmother to my mother to me. Right. And I remember I knew enough. I mean, probably, so my daughter's 16. Probably the last 5 or 6 years, I would have known not to say things like "don't eat that" or "you'll get fat," like that kind of
Right.
thing. But I do remember there was a season, and I think she might have been 11 or 12 when she wanted to live on granola bars. And I would see her come downstairs and like look for something to eat. And she would grab a granola bar and she would go upstairs with it. And I would see her do this over and over again. And I'm not proud of this moment, but I kind of went berserk one day. Like, you cannot live on granola bars.
Yeah.
And I gave her this whole speech about, granola bars not being like the healthiest choice and all the things. But if I'm intellectually honest, I think my fear was like, bad things are going to happen to your body if you're living on just granola bars. And I feel like even though my words didn't say that, she probably could have heard through them. And
Heard it through there.
we went through a season shortly thereafter where I think she was restricting. And I think the granola bars might have been part of like her even thinking about restricting, like, this was a safe thing to eat. And candidly, as I think about what I've modeled, that's what mom ate. I just ate bars once protein bars and, meal replacement bars became a thing. I lived on my smoothies and my bars. Like, she didn't see me sit down and eat food. Right. That was
because we could trust the numbers.
Right. Like I knew how much protein and all the things were in the bar. Yeah. And so it's like I think about my modeling and I think about like my heart posture there. And, but now she's at a different place and I see her being free to make different choices. And she's, making
that's awesome.
A wide variety of choices around what she eats.
And the word that you just used is a word that Leslie Schilling was real instrumental in teaching me.
Okay.
And that word is variety. Hey, I notice you are coming down and grabbing those granola bars, and it's probably because they're really easy to get. And it's simple. You don't have to think about it. We trust them because we know what they're going to taste like. But maybe can we add some variety in there? And that's one thing that Leslie really taught me as I was writing my book for teen girls was she was like, we need to not focus so much on the one thing, but kind of expand out and your overall variety of your food in an overall day, week, month, and having that focus. And to use your word a second ago, heart posture, I think that is helpful rather than you are eating 4 granola bars every single day. And yeah, I mean, the protein bars, sure. I mean, those are easy. Those are easy for us. And and they're going to see what we grab and they're going to model that one way or the other. Yeah.
Well,
the other thing too, I just want to go back. And this is so unfair, Heather. It is not right. It is not fair, but this is just part of where I was as a parent. When you talk about, and I hear this from moms all the time. Well, I'm worried if my kid has that, then they're going to gain weight or they're going to get fat or whatever. I didn't have that concern really as much because I have boys. And they both have pretty strong metabolisms, but the sad reality is our culture tells men to take up as much space as possible and for women to take up as little space as possible. So I was never really all that concerned about them getting bigger.
Yeah.
That's such a double standard. I hate admitting that, but I think that's also a reality.
Well, but I think that's changing. Because I have a 14-year-old who's very concerned about being fat. He was definitely picking up messages from YouTube about like how bad it would be if he got fat. And I think he has a touch of ADHD, which has been undiagnosed, but that's kind of helped me sort through maybe some of his pickiness around food. Maybe there were some texture issues and some things going on there that I didn't recognize before. I thought he was just kind of being belligerent about not eating certain things, but he was checking expiration dates on food and, just really limiting what he was eating there for a season. And he was probably 12 as well, come to think of it. So a couple years ago, playing club soccer, and we were having a conversation around food. uh, four times a week, 5 times a week, a fight. Like, if you do not eat more, you cannot play soccer. If you do not eat more, I mean, and then the number of times that I threatened to like pull him out of soccer became almost laughable because I never pulled him out of soccer, but I probably should have. But and then he was having problems on the field. He didn't have enough energy. He'd get hurt, and it would be a bigger incident because his blood sugar just wasn't high enough to regulate, like that kind of thing. And so I think it does affect our boys in a different sort of way.
Well, you're right. It does. And I think that there is this category, I'm going to call them optimization influencers out there who I can't speak to their heart behind it, but there's a lot of 60-second snippets on eating and exercise. And there is absolutely an element of like all the things that you and I did in the 90s, right? Of just being overly focused and do this, don't do this. And they used a lot of superlatives like this is the very best and this is the very worst. And which I think anytime you hear that is a good time to run the other direction. But yeah, there's definitely that as well. I have one who pays more attention to that than the other. One son who does. And so what I'll do is I will every now and then send a post from a trusted male, someone I know and trust on Instagram and say like, hey, this is pretty interesting. Or I even sent a whole profile one time of like, this guy might be a nice balance to some of the other people you're following. And hopefully just trying to get other voices in, because the reality is, I mean, algorithm, I think, is more or less a 4-letter word now, and they know what you're looking at. And so they'll just keep shooting you more and more and more. And so there's a lot of that stuff that we're fighting against as well, for sure.
Yeah. And it feels like with teens, this is so tricky because they do like to get their information from other sources.
They do.
And when you are the mom giving one narrative that doesn't fit anything that they're watching on YouTube or seeing on social media, it's like you are speaking a foreign language. I mean, and candidly, other moms that are still more entrenched in diet culture, right? And I think we are all in diet culture, whether we want to be or not, right? It's just a matter of like the rooting out of, okay, how much is this going to like dominate my life? Like, is diet culture rules our house rules, or diet culture, is diet culture out there and we're trying to do things differently in our home, all those sorts of things. But when you're the voice that's the anti-voice to, well, maybe even things like Leslie Schilling talks about, mention her again, like things they're learning in school, right? Things they're learning in. My daughter in biology class last year learned about how to eat healthy and track calories and those sorts of things. It's like, this is a little Christian school. How do we help effectively when we're the lone voice in the woods, sounding like the crazy person in the woods?
It is. That, and I think the little I understand about the teen brain, biologically, they are designed to not listen to us because they are kind of designed to, I mean, they're not meant to live with us forever and ever. And, they're wanting to leave home. They're wanting to go do that stuff. And so, of course, they're not going to listen to us. And then coupled with the fact that they're listening to voices that we don't necessarily agree with or support or something like that. So, yeah, I think that is really hard. A couple ideas that might help is, number one, get some other voices in. Do the like, hey, I think this girl's kind of interesting on Instagram, and just maybe send a reel or send something funny or kind of lighthearted. if they're at school, maybe consider binding together with some of the moms of their friends, which I know is kind of hard in, middle school and high school. I mean, I didn't even know like some of my kids' moms' names, like their first names for a long time. I mean, that's just because they're off at school and, there's 3,000 kids in their high school and like,
Right.
But is it in as much as it's possible, like, hey, like these are the kinds of things that I'm learning, and I would love it if we could kind of make a safe space for our children. Um, I don't know how to bring this up without sounding self-promotional, Heather, but I just wrote a book for teen girls called Your Core Strength, and it is designed to do all of that. It is a different voice. And oftentimes I will tell moms, I'm like, I'm not saying anything different than you are, but I'm not you. And so they're going to listen,
Yeah.
or they're more likely to listen. And so this book offers nutritional science, exercise science. It's all through a lens of faith that it reshapes why we even take care of ourselves. And it's someone different. And then as a resource, I offer a lot of different Instagram accounts that they can follow. So again, let's start inundating our, if your daughter has Instagram, like let's get some good solid stuff on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really tricky because they may hear one thing at home and then they go to school and the girls, conveniently forget their lunch every day.
Mm-hmm.
This is a real issue. These girls, they don't eat breakfast because they're sleeping in, and then they go to
Mm-hmm.
school and no one's eating lunch, and it's not cool to eat lunch, and then they
Mm-hmm.
wonder why they're feeling lightheaded in PE in sixth period, or
Mm-hmm.
they're
Mm-hmm.
passing out, or not feeling well when they go to soccer practice. So
Right.
it's an uphill battle for
Yeah.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And if you're the mom trying to change that, who also was the one who used to be that, right? Like I think
Jesus have mercy on
it's
us.
just messy, right? It is.
Yeah.
It's just messy to be like, no, you need to eat regularly. But mom, you didn't eat regularly the first 12 years of my life. Whoa, you weren't noticing that, were you? It is so messy. We need so much grace for this journey, don't we?
Well, yes, we do. And I think also, Heather, that is when appropriate vulnerability comes into play with our
Mm-hmm.
children.
Yeah.
When they are old enough to say, Mom, this is different. Or maybe they're just noticing, or they're like, why isn't mom telling me to get my hand out of the ice cream carton?
Mm-hmm.
Or, like she used to, and now she doesn't. And this is weird. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think there is a lot of power in going to our children and saying, I did the best I could with the information that I had, and now I'm learning more, and I don't think I was right with that, and I'm sorry. And I'm on this journey and I'm relearning, and you can word it however is best for your child, but I think there's so much power in just apologizing to your kid. And Heather, I'll tell you that I did this recently. I did that, and my one of my kids said, "I hear your apology. I receive your apology. Thank you. And I forgive you because I think that that was a problem." And I'm like, it makes me
Yeah.
so proud of him that he recognized all of that. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think we have to be, we have to really humble ourselves. I mean, parenting in itself is humbling no matter what. But
Absolutely.
especially as our kids have learned and we've taught them one thing and now we're doing something different,
Yeah.
let's show them the humility and the vulnerability that we want them to have.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
And I will say, well, I've had clients too, that, like even clients that have adult daughters that are,
Yeah.
beyond their 20s and their 30s and such. And they've gone and apologized and had great conversations. So I think that vulnerability is really powerful. In my house, it's been more like I think I was careful enough. I don't think my words ever gave me away, aside from you know, hey, we don't eat too much candy, like we limit how much candy and, you know, Halloween, you can only have 5 pieces. And then you come and you see the 27 wrappers and you're like, I think that was more than 5 pieces. We're going to put it up high. So only mom and dad can sneak into it. You can't reach it. And then you're going to wonder where your Reese's peanut butter cups are tomorrow morning, but never mind. We did that sort of thing.
I'm so glad that wasn't just me.
But I mean, we also sold the candy back to the dentist and, we did those kinds of things. And I stopped with all that a couple years ago. Now my kids are older, and so I think it would be a very different experience. I'm not talking to a mom of a 5-year-old
Right.
I think that's hard. Like, I don't know.
It is hard.
Leave your 5-year-old with unsupervised with candy and they eat it all. And, maybe they will learn because they get a sick stomach, but then maybe you're up all night with them vomiting and that's really hard on you, especially if you've got other kids.
Yeah.
Like, that's a tough parenting call to make. But I will say I have noticed since I stopped being the food police for myself, right? And for them, I have noticed that they regulate much better than I thought they ever could. Right.
Yeah.
Like I thought if the ice cream was free to have whenever, they would eat ice cream all day long. And now, it is there. And some of them will have it after dinner, some nights.
Right.
My son will sometimes come, my oldest will come home and he'll have it right after school, but then he won't have any after dinner. Like that's just what, it is very strange to watch intuitive eating work with teens who have freedom like that. And so that's been a testimony reminder to me, like, oh, okay, it really is possible.
Yeah, it is. And I think we have to give them the grace of the journey. I mean, it's still something that I am learning. It's still something that I don't know if the right word is perfecting or not, but old habits die hard, right? And so I think we also have to give our kids, like, they're probably going to eat, they're going to eat a lot of ice cream. They're going to eat a lot of Oreos. And I think what's important is that we just kind of keep our mouth shut about it unless they are asking, like, gosh, what do you think? And that we enter into a consulting role rather than a cop role with food.
Right.
And just let them learn. One example I gave recently is, as a personal trainer, I help women in they're all wanting to get stronger for various reasons. And the way that we get stronger muscles is that we have what's called load or weight, enough tension that we break down those muscles and we get little micro tears in our muscles. And then they replenish with the food that we eat and they repair and they get stronger. And so maybe if we think about our children, if they are transitioning from having the food police to having a mom who is not going to be on them at all, we have to give them the micro tears and we've got to get them, or we have to allow them to make mistakes and to maybe overeat, potentially to undereat because they're not really paying attention and they're not going into practice fed, and give them the space, and the critical thinking to get stronger depending on their age. I mean, you and I are more parents on like the teens and the older where they can kind of think this. Again, speaking to the mom of the 5-year-old, that's harder. And I don't have the answers for you in this, and I'm so sorry. But for those with teens and they're like, what? Like, this isn't the mom I know. Letting him, give him the micro tears. Let him do that. They'll learn.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts on how we kind of do this messy journey out of diet culture in front of our kids and with our kids? Any final thoughts on that, Amy? Anything we didn't cover?
Yeah, well, one thing that has been said on my Grace to Health podcast, because I will have conversations with other people and say, like, well, how do we, I don't know a parent who doesn't want their children to grow up with a strong relationship with food in their body. And the recurring theme I hear is it's not about what we are saying about our children. It's what we're saying about us and also about other people. And so I think those are the words that we have to watch the most. What are we saying about us and about other people? And the other thing too that I would just really love to give everyone grace on is there are so many influences out there. Heather, you and I grew up and we looked at magazines, billboards, and we don't even need to. We don't even. And what you say?
Entertainment Tonight at 7:00
tonight. Yeah.
every night, every weeknight.
But our level of influence was significantly lower than what they have. And so, Mom, you may be doing everything you have, and you may have kicked diet culture out of your house, and it is still hard. And there are so many influences out there. And so and we can't forget to pray for our kids, and we can't forget to pray that diet culture, that they have the discernment of it, and that what we are teaching them now is that foundation. And maybe we are repairing some of the foundation that was not great, and we're building a new one. And, just be prayerful that they're able to recognize it. Because when we can recognize that, that's one of the first steps, I think, in healing from it and being able to turn against it and turn away from it.
Yeah. To see that it's not a benign thing, that there is an agenda for them around their appearance. And, again, I feel like this is so tricky. It's like, there might be some truth in that agenda, and that, okay, broccoli is a good, healthy food and might nourish your body more than another food might, right? But to not get caught up in that as really a false religion of sorts, to not buy into it with, all their energy, all their time, all their money, like perhaps their mom did. And I think that's a really important thing to kind of help them see it. So I appreciate that. Amy, your book, Your Core Strength, I was happy to endorse it. It's a great book for teen girls. I'm looking forward to getting the physical copy to let my daughter read. But you've done a really good job with it and making it, I would say, simple for a teen girl to digest, but yet not so simple that it's dumbed down. I mean, there's none of that. You're speaking to teens like at the appropriate age level, like they're able to understand these concepts, but you're giving them truth in a digestible way. And I really appreciate that book. Can you tell our listeners, I know about it, tell our listeners just a little bit more about that as we close the show today.
Sure. Well, thank you for that question. Yes, the book is called Your Core Strength, a young woman's go-to guide to eating, exercise, and empowered health. And this is a Christ-centered, diet culture-free book to help empower young women to figure out how to eat and move and discern spiritually so they can feel and function well. Those are two words I use a lot in there because God has given us that discernment in our unique original bodies. So yeah, it is honestly a result of after I wrote Your Worthy Body, which was my book for women over 40, I had a lot of moms come to me saying, Amy, I need something like this for my daughters. Again, it's just that different voice. It's a different voice. So I have worked very hard and I pray so hard that it is safe for young women. And I've had a lot of intuitive eating eyes on it. And so I do believe that it is a safe place for them to learn the nutrition facts, to learn the exercise facts. I have recipes and workouts, and I have Instagram accounts to follow that are in there. And I'm just hoping that it's a wonderful resource for young women. Every chapter is a question that I've gotten as a trainer to young girls and a coach to young girls. And I'm hoping that, boy, wouldn't it be wonderful if this is a seed to change the diet culture conversation, at least in some of our children. So yeah, I'm hopeful and I'm prayerful for it. And it is available just about wherever books are sold.
Awesome. I can't wait for this to be out because I think it's going to be a really great resource. People ask me, what should my teens read all the time? And I'm like, I don't really have much for you. So I think it'll be great that I'll have something to refer people to now. Well, Amy Connell, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. Can you tell everyone where they can reach you or connect with you?
Absolutely. My home base is gracedhealth.com, GRACED health.com. And I have two different kinds of podcasts. So I have one, which is the Graced Health podcast. That's for women over 40. That is also a Christ-centered, intuitive eating focused show. Officially as of January 2024. And then I also have Lessons to My Teenage Self. So those are also easily digestible, very short episodes, which is very hard for me because I'm kind of long-winded. But so that is for your teen daughter. It's also on YouTube. So if she's like, I don't know, podcasts are for old people, she can actually listen to it on YouTube as well.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Amy. Thanks again for being on the show today. And thank you for watching or listening today. I hope something today has helped you stop comparing and start living. Bye-bye. The Compared To Show is proud to be part of the Life Audio Podcast Network. For more great Christian podcasts, go to lifeaudio.com.